The Upside of Irrationality, The Unexpected Benefits of Defying Logic by Ariely explores the paradox that while humans often behave irrationally, that irrationality can have surprising advantages. Ariely, a behavioral economist, blends personal anecdotes with empirical research to delve into the ways our seemingly illogical actions can serve us in life, love, and work. Through storytelling and experiments, he redefines what it means to make bad decisions and helps us see how embracing our quirks might actually make us better off. The book opens with a deeply personal narrative about a severe accident Ariely suffered in his youth, which left him with serious burns over much of his body. His experience with prolonged pain and the human side of medicine sets the emotional tone for the book. This trauma forced him to confront how people deal with discomfort and adapt their thinking under stress. It's not just a memoir. It becomes a case study in understanding the psychological biases that influence decisions under duress and how personal experience often leads to broader insight. One of the central questions Ariely explores is why we often overvalue what we create ourselves. He discusses an experiment involving IKEA furniture, where people who assembled their own pieces felt more attached to them. This IKEA effect is a kind of irrational pride that leads people to place greater worth on things they've invested effort in. Ariely doesn't condemn this behavior. Instead, he asks us to consider how we might use this bias in the workplace and in personal life, to create more meaning and engagement. Ariely also examines the limits of monetary motivation. Using clever experiments, he finds that when people are offered very high financial rewards, their performance can actually suffer due to increased pressure. This contradicts conventional economic wisdom and shows how human motivation is far more complex than just incentives. In one story, participants played simple games for varying monetary rewards. Surprisingly, those promised the most money performed the worst. Ariely argues that companies should think beyond salary and bonuses to truly engage employees. The book spends considerable time on adaptation, both emotional and psychological. We think we'll never recover from heartbreak or loss, but often we adapt more quickly than expected. Ariely describes how people misjudge the duration and intensity of their future emotional states, a concept known as hedonic adaptation. He walks us through various scenarios where people believe something will be intolerable, only to find they've adjusted quite well. This misperception can skew our decisions about everything from relationships to job changes. In exploring our social behaviors, Ariely delves into the effects of online dating. He suggests that by focusing too much on checkboxes and filters, dating platforms may actually strip away the human elements that make romance happen. He recounts experiments that showed people are more attracted to imperfection than to ideal profiles. Flaws make us relatable. He argues that the irrational sparks of attraction, those gut feelings, are not just quirks but deeply human tools for connection. When it comes to revenge and fairness, Ariely finds that people will go to great lengths to punish unfair behavior, even at a personal cost. He shares stories from economic games where participants willingly gave up money just to ensure that someone else who behaved unfairly would not benefit. This defies logic but underscores how humans are wired for a sense of justice. He explores how this principle can inform legal systems, customer service, and even political behavior. One particularly intriguing chapter discusses adaptation to pain. Drawing from his own experience and research, Ariely explores how people can become more tolerant of discomfort through routine and predictability. He revisits his burn treatments and reflects on how predictability, even of pain, made it more manageable. This leads to the broader insight that structure and understanding can often make irrational or unpleasant experiences more tolerable. Ariely also explores why we often overvalue things we've suffered for. He recounts a study where people rated experiences more positively if they had endured some form of hardship along the way. It's a kind of psychological martyrdom. We feel that pain adds meaning. This insight has wide implications, from why we might stay in toxic relationships to how we justify grueling work conditions in the name of achievement. The book moves fluidly into the psychology of meaning in work. Ariely tells the story of two groups building Lego figures. One group saw their creations displayed, while the other watched them disassembled immediately. Unsurprisingly, the former reported much greater satisfaction and engagement. The takeaway is simple: even meaningless work can feel worthwhile if it's acknowledged or preserved. Destruction of meaning, however, deflates motivation entirely. Ariely also critiques how society views bonuses and performance metrics. He suggests that rigid systems often ignore the human need for purpose and recognition. Through various anecdotes, he shows how flexible, trust-based systems sometimes outperform structured incentive models. His call to action is clear: organizations need to design around human nature, not against it. In matters of love, Ariely offers humorous and insightful observations about how irrational behavior plays out in relationships. From awkward blind dates to elaborate romantic gestures, he shows that our emotional decisions, however illogical, often serve to reinforce intimacy and commitment. It's not always about making the right choice, it's about making meaningful ones. Later chapters focus on self-control and procrastination. Ariely shares a story of college students given flexible deadlines, only to discover that most fared better when deadlines were imposed externally. This reveals our deep aversion to self-imposed discipline and how structure can protect us from our future, less motivated selves. In essence, irrational constraints can become rational tools. One of the most poignant sections of the book reflects on how we cope with randomness and loss. Ariely points out that humans are constantly searching for patterns and reasons, even when chaos reigns. He discusses how people often attribute meaning to random events in order to feel more in control, and how this tendency, while irrational, can help us process grief and maintain hope. By the end of The Upside of Irrationality, Ariely circles back to the overarching theme: irrationality is not a flaw to be eradicated but a reality to be understood and sometimes even embraced. Through stories that are by turns hilarious, heartbreaking, and deeply revealing, he invites readers to rethink what it means to be logical and shows that the messiness of human nature may be one of our greatest assets.